2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
At the end of the show, the last 15 minutes, we'll do our Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. We've got a couple of good potential winners this week, one of whom is Jennifer Horn.
Chair of the New Hampshire
Chair
GOP.
of the New Hampshire GOP. So stay tuned for that. We're here with Max. We're going to do some more legislative stuff, talk about not just the legislation in New Hampshire, but, of course, the culture, the politics, and a lot of this stuff affects your states and your national government, too, because the people who do this crazy stuff, they're in government everywhere. So don't forget to check us out on Stitcher, iTunes, Spreaker, iHeart, TuneIn, all your mobile devices. You can get us. We are streaming live on Spreaker right now and also on Ustream.
And at Granite Grok.
And at Granite Grok. And you can get audio versions and video versions on YouTube. Actually, if you go to my YouTube channel, Spreaker automatically pops up a copy of every episode that I post to Steve McDonald's YouTube, whether I want it or not. But it's there. If you go to my page, it's like this. It's all these blue Spreaker audio-only things. It's crazy. Or you can just listen at Spreaker. Don't even bother going there.
And you can go to the Granite Grok YouTube channel.
You can, absolutely. There's tons of video there. Tons.
Almost 2,500 videos.
So
with all just about 1 million views.
So go check it out. And, Facebook and Twitter, Granite Grok. Just look for Granite Grok. Like us, share us, do all that good stuff. All right, so what else did we have besides the balsams? I mentioned a couple things, and we just sort of ended up stuck on the ball. We always get stuck on the balsams. Let's move on to something else.
Because it's a boondoggle, it's some of the worst of government, but we did actually get a good bill to pass through the legislature this week.
And we killed a bad bill. Well, I thought it was bad, but
so go
please
for it.
Proceed, sir.
Before I forget, we did overturn one committee recommendation. That was on SB 252. That was simply establishing a committee to study a number plate commemorating Laconia Motorcycle Week.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So the Transportation Committee blew that out of the water 13-2. Well, a couple of members of that committee didn't agree with that decision. So they went to the floor and they fought it and they argued it. And people said, well, what's wrong with establishing a committee for Laconia for Motorcycle Week? What's wrong with that? So we overruled them. We overruled them by a pretty good margin. And I think now it's set in that committee recommendations are just recommendations. Judiciary Committee carries a lot of weight. Judiciary Committee recommended unanimously SB 243, which was a bill that essentially, as I read it, allowed a town manager who wants to cover everything up, protect everything from the right to know law, to simply file some bogus paperwork and say, oh, we're going to sue somebody. All they have to do is have anything in writing
from
filed.
The town lawyer. Yes, I remember this.
But it doesn't even have to come from the town lawyer. It could just be the town manager grabbing his little scratch pad and saying, I'm going to sue somebody. And as long as there's something listed in writing, he doesn't have to list a cause of action, any facts, any details, or even who he's suing, and say, well, we're threatening legal action. And that's it. And they can cover up everything. Now, in Seabrook, we had a town manager, not the current one, but a previous town manager who took a $500,000 contract for mold remediation at the town hall. It was a disaster. Everyone was upset and up in arms about it. And he took the $500,000 and he gave it to a contractor he knew in Massachusetts. They came up, they did the work. It was not put up for competitive bid, and he said, oh, it was all legal. So people exercised their right to know. They asked for the information. Where did it go? Why wasn't this put up for competitive bid? And we got no answers from him. So now, to cover that kind of thing up, all he has to do is threaten to sue anyone. He could even threaten to sue the contractor as part of a little deal, and he could cover everything up, and only the selectmen would know about it. So there are a lot of bills like that going through. That one unfortunately passed, but at least there was a floor fight on it. We got 100 and some votes against it. And Judiciary has made a number of other attempts to curtail right to know. Of course, there was the famous one where they wanted to charge so many, minimum wage times however many hours they said to recover records, and finally they knew that they were going to get their butts kicked and they didn't want Judiciary to look bad, so they tabled their own bill because they knew it was very, very unpopular and the press was covering that one.
We talked about it a lot. The regular media did. That bill was ridiculous.
I think members of the Judiciary Committee are going to have a hard time getting reelected. They don't have any support from within the party now. We're looking at the things that they're doing, and we're seeing the votes 16-0, 17-0, 17-0. They're voting unanimously, and then we're looking at the bills and we're saying, how did that get any votes except for maybe from the Democrats? How is that getting any votes? You want to cover up this expense. You want towns and cities to be able to cover up no
Aaron
big
Day, if you're
contracts.
listening, Judiciary list primary.
Absolutely. And it is the case where you keep wondering, we may talk about this later on, but, the NHGOP committeeman, committeewoman, obviously and blatantly activating themselves in defiance of the NHGOP platform. And we just keep seeing this over and over and over again, where why are we electing Republicans when it's not so much that they won't support what the platform says, but they're actively egging people on to do the exact opposite. Bergeron signing on for gay marriage at the Supreme Court, and now it came out, I have to hand it to Pindell of the Boston Globe, late of WMUR, exposing Steve Dupree as being for abortion. And he's supposed to be representative of the grassroots of the Republican Party.
We did oppose both of them in their elections.
And God bless her heart, and I mean that truly. I think that, Susan Olsen put up a post on Jennifer Horn as well. We'll talk about that as well. But I'm going to have to write about Mr. Dupree.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wasn't there something about Medicaid expansion also? I thought there was something.
We've been going against that. That's been my favorite hobby horse, but that's time for another
Yeah, the state
time.
party was all in on that. It was a state senate thing. Anyway, let's not get too far off the
Okay.
No. So we dealt with that one.
My apologies.
And so
for
the Judiciary Committee basically is operating in lockstep under the Jasper Shurtleff regime.
Pretty much.
We need to make them, this comes down to our training, guys, we need to make them more afraid of the voters than they are of the Democrats.
Well, they don't realize it. In the Seacoast, at least, when we vote on something and it's roll called, it's published in the paper. The next day, or sometimes the same day, people find out in our district. They find out online. They know within hours of me pushing that button, they know how I voted. They know how my other reps have voted and whether or not they voted. They know that I vote 99% of the time. They know that other reps are missing half their votes. They know that some people aren't showing up at all.
Yeah, and Laconia Daily Sun, thanks to Mike Kitch, to whom I often have a lot of arguments in this long simmering war, but he does put up a lot of the votes, especially for those pieces of legislation that are of consequence. Either that or he's just trying to poke a stick, one of the two. But, and I think it's healthy to have those votes put out there and hung out to dry. We just need to hang some of those legislators with those votes out to dry as well.
All right, so casino died.
That was a long, long debate. I waited in the anteroom through most of the debate. They aired the debate over speakers throughout the State House, so you can go all around the State House and still listen to the debate. In fact, I went out to get ice cream, and we were still talking about casinos. Ben & Jerry's was giving away free ice cream. I believe the Auto Dealers Association had an event going on. They had cars out there being demoed. They were just parked, and they had their hoods up like they were selling them to...
No free samples, huh?
No, but we did get free samples of ice cream. The ice cream, I'll say, was terrific, but a lot of legislators got sick, and I haven't found out yet whether or not there's a correlation. I got sick, very sick, I haven't figured out if there's a correlation.
It's not,
yet.
Well, that's because-
it's not Bluebell ice cream, is it?
That's because Ben and Jerry support the death tax. That's why. Wrote about that this week. Anyway, so while they were making people sick during the casino vote, are they pro-casino? I wonder.
Anyway. The most esteemed wife actually took her iPad and she was listening to that debate. I've never seen her do that before. She just wanted to know what was going on.
Well, there was a lot of buzz in the press about how this might be the year we get a casino.
Well, but we went into it thinking it was already 20 to 30 votes behind, and it was the same arguments for and against over and over and over and over and over. And so that 1 hour debate, you tune in and you listen to it, and it's the same arguments for and against.
Don't they try to have like a policy where you don't just come up and make the same argument if somebody already made it?
So wasn't there an attempt, Max, to actually make it different this time? I mean, the proposal comes up and it goes around and around, and essentially it's a crony capitalist license by the state in the to try and get some tax money, and it has to be. Basically, it's cronies of the governor or some legislators that want to open this casino. And didn't we try and make it different this time and actually say, if you're going to have casinos, just allow casinos and let the tax chips fall where they may?
Oh, yeah, JR had an amendment, right? Was it JR?
Yes, he did. It actually stunned people. It went over 100 votes, and it was just get rid of RSA 647 Section 2. Effectively, legalize most forms of gaming in the state. And Rogers, who's for casinos, Democrat from Concord, I think.
Yeah.
She's the one with the white hair, and she has the pink and blue, dark blue streak in her hair. She went up and spoke against it, and she said, well, children will be able to gamble under this bill. And I was thinking about that. Oh, you don't want children gambling. And I thought, well, teenagers are already gambling as it is, so they're just doing it illegally. There's no possible way you can enforce something like that.
At this point, the way that Maggie Hassan wanted her casino set up, one heavily regulated casino. It's like, why not just make it part of state government? Because effectively, that's what it's going to be if it's that heavily regulated.
Well,
just make it another
because then it would lose money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the definition of fascism, if you look back to Benito Mussolini, was they realized that unlike the Germans, they didn't have to own everything. You just had to so heavily regulate it, the state ends up with essentially control of that privately held company anyways. And that's effectively what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and that's also similar to what happens in heavily socialist countries where the government and the unions and every other interested party but the people who are tasked with making a profit actually end up on the board of the entity.
So this is part of the reason that SB 113 failed.
Talking about casinos, and now they're talking about fascism.
House Bill 630 is a free market version of that, and people who were on the fence found out about HB 630. HB 630 would lower your property taxes by roughly, if everything worked out properly, roughly $400 per year. The state's share of the property taxes is about $250 per thousand. Is set to be equal to be $363 million a year in revenue taken in. If HB 630 passed, we would take in about $227 million, which would go to buy that property tax rate down. People looked at HB 630 and said, that's a much better deal. The reason is SB 113, which we killed on Wednesday, would have saved you maybe $20 a year on property taxes, if anything.
Wait a minute. I'm looking at the tax rates here. And SB 113, the original one, was between 35 and 18% for tax rates. But underneath the Republican one, a tax rate of 67%? It's like, it confirms what I was saying. Basically, we're going to just let private runnership of a state-owned entity.
Well, but
67, two-thirds of what comes in?
True, but this 67% right now is 100%. In other words, it's not allowed at all. This would allow, in effect, slot machines to go in anywhere you've got a liquor license. Any liquor store, any bar. So at least this would be an expansion of freedom. The other thing is the revenue coming in from this would pay down the property tax rate. That's the benefit. You wouldn't have gotten that from. You wouldn't have gotten that right. Exactly.
Right, we're gonna take 60 seconds. We'll be right back. Hang on.
Raw Talk.